Hello, everyone, and welcome to the OI Report. It is I, your host, OI, and what better way to start this YouTube channel than with the Group H Champions League match between my very own Manchester United versus Paris Saint Germain that occurred on December 2nd at Old Trafford, the Theatre of Dreams. I have a lot of comments and complaints about how Thomas Tuchel managed his PSG side, but I have a lot more comments and complaints about how Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed his Manchester United side. But we'll also talk about the good things they did, right? Because after all, congratulations to all PSG fans out there. Thomas Tuchel and his PSG crew were able to grab 3 very, very, very valuable points at Old Trafford, which as a United fan is quite sad to see because I grew up watching the Theatre of Dreams be this battleground that it was, and teams visiting would be begging not to get demolished and not to lose more than a 2-goal difference. But now every Manchester United at Old Trafford match just looks like another Oprah Winfrey show, where you get points, everybody gets points, except, of course, Manchester United. But it is what it is. That's a topic for another time. That's a discussion for a later future. You'll see why I'm a little heated, and you'll see why I'm a little agitated after you look at my analysis, because you'll be wondering the exact same thing I've been wondering since last night. What the hell was Solskjaer thinking? Alright, with the iPad in hand, let's go ahead and start with the analysis. I'm going to begin with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's formation along with his tactics and lineup. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer started with the standard 4-2-3-1 formation, which you typically use when you want to go counter-attacking and you got your fast wingers on the side. So for all you FIFA folks out there, if you ever want to go counter-attacking, 4-2-3-1 is a pretty good formation, especially when you have good wingers, because 1, it gives you balance in the defense. 2, in addition to the balance in the offense, you also relieve the wingers of some of their defensive duties so they can actually focus on attacking. So while I do agree with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's 4-2-3-1 formation, I don't agree with his starting tactics and I don't agree with his lineup. So he started with David De Gea, the wall in goal. Well, technically right now David De Gea is not really a wall. He's more like wallpaper. But I hope he gets his form back. I still would have picked him over Dean Henderson. While I do love Dino, I don't think he has the minutes enough for a game of such caliber, especially for the Champions League. Right in front of David De Gea, he started with the comedic pair of Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire. And then as a left back, he got Alex Telles. As a right back, he started with Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Now, let's talk about the midfield. He chose a defensive midfielding pair of Fred and McTominay. That tells me one thing. That tells me that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was scared. He didn't want to go on the offense. He wanted to actually be more defensive-minded. He didn't want to control the game. He didn't want to do anything of that sort. He just wanted to be pure defensive and pure counter-attacking. To me, that's a problem, because when you go into a game like this happy and content with a tie, that's definitely going to backfire. And it did. It backfired in the first 5 minutes of the game. So while McTominay had an okay game, he did, though, make a mistake in the first goal, which we will talk about. Fred. This guy right here. This guy's got a flippin' PhD in clownery. Man, do I have some words for you. Why didn't you start with Donny van de Beek, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, instead of Fred? Donny van de Beek would have been perfect for a 4-2-3-1 formation. He's both defensive-minded and attacking-minded, and he would have been a perfect transition. Perfect transition for this formation, especially against the PSG team that are playing with a 4-3-3 formation. Doesn't make any sense. Now let's go back to the attacking midfielders. The one thing I don't agree with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is you're starting with Anthony Martial. Why would you start Anthony Martial as a left mid? You know very well that Anthony Martial is going to be a secondary striker alongside Cavani in every attack. Now, if you intentionally knew that, then you must have known that Kylian Mbappe and Leandro Paredes are going to have all this open space to attack and cause havoc. And they're going to create a lot of strain on Alex Telles. And that's how the first goal happened. So I completely disagree with starting Anthony Martial as a left mid. As a matter of fact, you have Mason Greenwood on the bench. Why don't you start Mason Greenwood over there? I for sure know that Mason Greenwood would have been definitely a better choice, especially considering that Martial already missed like 8 chances, in the past how many games. So, yep, that's pretty much it for Manchester United. Now let's jump into Thomas Tuchel's side. Thomas Tuchel decided to go with his standard 4-3-3 formation, which he usually and typically uses when he plays against the French teams in the French league. Starting in the back is Keylor Navas. Right in front of him as center backs, Marquinhos and Presnel Kimpembe. And on the left back, he got Abdou Diallo. On the right back, he got Florenzi. And then Leandro Paredes Danilo Pereira, and Marco Verratti as your midfield trio. And then for your attacking trio, of course, the talented Kylian Mbappe, Moise Kean, and Neymar. 4-3-3 formations would have been a good formation, but not for this game. This is where I disagree with Thomas Tuchel. The 4-3-3 formation would have been solid if you were playing against a team that don't know how to counterattack. Manchester United's only strong suit, arguably, is their counter-attacking force. So I would have not started with a 4-3-3 formation. As a matter of fact, Manchester United's tying goal, even though it was a little bit of a deflection, was through a good counter-attack, which allowed for a lot of open space in the lines of the 4-3-3 formation. All right. With that discussion, let's go ahead and jump into the first goal. Okay, so out of the 4 goals that were scored in the Wednesday game, 3 being for PSG and 1 for United, I would like to take a closer look and let us analyze the first goal for PSG and first goal for United. Mainly because those 2 goals were clear indications of the errors those 2 managers started the game off with. The second and third goal for PSG were more or less Thomas Tuchel's reading of the game and his reactions to the events, along with corrections to his earlier errors, which is pretty commendable. I don't like it when a manager is very, very stubborn. As well as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's slow reaction to the game, his delay in taking out key players were also the reasons for those second and third goals for PSG. So let us start off with the first goal for PSG right here. Okay, so the first goal for PSG can be attributed to the great movement by the PSG players as well as the laziness from the Manchester United players. So, Mbappe runs down the wing with the ball. Martial, of course, is not going to try to defend him because Martial can't defend a grain of rice. Mbappe passes the ball to Neymar. Fred and McTominay close down. Mbappe moves around very skillfully. Neymar passes it back to Mbappe. And now Neymar leaves to try to get opening and some space. Mbappe now has the ball. What McTominay is supposed to be doing is be patient and wait for Mbappe to make a mistake or pass the ball. But what he does is he lunges. Big no-no as a defensive midfielder. You're not supposed to be lunging on someone like Mbappe. Mbappe moves, of course, around McTominay very easily. So now he's got McTominay out of his sights, and he's now a bigger threat. Moise Kean moves behind Lindelof to create space for Mbappe, and now Aaron Wan-Bissaka closes down on Mbappe, which is pretty good from Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But here is what's really cool. Marco Verratti runs down the line to create another option and another threat. So now Aaron Wan-Bissaka becomes very torn on whether he's supposed to be closing on Mbappe or on Verratti. So he becomes really like in the middle right here. Now Mbappe's got a closer and a more open shot. Takes the shot. Lindelof was here to try to block it, and he does block it, but not very well, and the ball flies into the air erratically. Now here is what really annoyed me. Alex Telles and Harry Maguire, now Alex Telles is over here, Alex Telles and Harry Maguire are supposed to expect the unexpected and try to run after the ball, but once again, laziness. So what happened was the ball landed here, and who was there to get it? Neymar, and also Moise Kean, and not a single Manchester United defender there. Laziness. Neymar grabs the ball. David De Gea tries to close the close angle, but what he does is he leaves kind of a little bit openness right here, and Neymar, from such an incredibly tight spot, shoots the ball really well and scores the first goal for PSG. And what David De Gea was doing was he was doing this weird thing with his leg. So, 1, laziness from the Manchester United players. 2, great movement by the PSG players. So after the first goal by PSG in the 5th minute, which you can kind of say and arguably say that it helped Manchester United more than it harmed Manchester United, because now Manchester United is actually attacking and is actually moving the ball rather than be this closed defending team that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer intended from the beginning of the match. So the first goal for Manchester United came in the 32nd minute via a good shot from Rashford that got deflected off Danilo Pereira. So let's look into this. Martial had the ball over here, and instead of passing it either to Cavani or Rashford, he goes for this really weird low IQ shot. I think Navas could have held, but instead he deflected away, and very smartly Aaron Wan-Bissaka went to get it, and he was in a good position to get it. Kimpembe then tries to close down on Aaron Wan-Bissaka, which I think was an error and a mistake. Diallo should have been the guy to do that. Kimpembe now left a lot of space in the defense, which Danilo Pereira very smartly went in there to kind of close down and block over. Rashford opens up for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Aaron Wan-Bissaka passes it down to Rashford. And now Diallo, instead of doing the smart job of closing down and blocking any shot from Rashford, he kind of does this half close down on Rashford, which I think is because he didn't know that Danilo Pereira was behind him to close down any other space for when Cavani and Martial went in there. Now Rashford shoots a shot. It goes by Diallo, and then it gets deflected off Pereira into the goal, marking the first goal for Manchester United in the 32nd minute. So here is why Thomas Tuchel kind of screwed up. He shouldn't have started with the 4-3-3 formation, because this was because of the 4-3-3 formation that Thomas Tuchel started with. To show you again, this is the start of the play, and having a 4-3-3 formation led to spaces over here, and over here, which were occupied by Manchester United players. Thus, the problem with a 4-3-3 formation, specifically during a counter-attack. With the game equalized, Manchester United started to actually become the better team. They, for the most part of the first half after the equalizer, and in the early second half timing, Manchester United were attacking faster, they were playing better, and they were even more aggressive in their build-up. For some reason, PSG started to lose their reins on the game, and they started to lose their personality and their touch on the game. And in my opinion, if you had watched the game, you would have seen that Manchester United were actually closer to winning the game if it wasn't for our buddy here, Anthony Martial, who had to miss three sitters in this game, making his tally up to 8 or 9 easy missed chances in the past 3 games. I do sound like a broken record when I say that Mason Greenwood should have been the guy who started instead of Anthony Martial, but it is what it is. And up until the 65th minute, United was playing better. After the 65th minute, finally, a manager started to actually think in this game and started to actually be proactive. Thomas Tuchel decided that the 4-3-3 formation wasn't working and decided to do a shift to a 3-5-2 formation by removing Leandro Paredes, because he had a yellow card, and putting in Ander Herrera. And he also removed Moise Kean, because again, Moise Kean is an attacker. In a 3-5-2, you only need 2 attackers. And he put in Mitchell Bakker. And then to shift over to the 3-5-2 formation, what he did was he put Neymar up top, Mbappe up top, Pereira back as a complete center defensive mid, Ander Herrera as a right center mid, and a left center mid, Verratti. And then he put Mitchell Bakker as a wing back, Florenzi as a wing back, and Kimpembe, Marquinhos, and Diallo as their center backs. As you can see, a 3-5-2 formation. And lo and behold, shortly after, 4 minutes exactly, Marquinhos, the center back, scored a good goal from his positioning through an error by Cavani and Aaron Wan-Bissaka when they played him onside on a follow-through corner play. Now, for the point of no return, Fred decided to get sent off through a stupid error by both him and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Fred's error was because he fell for every single trap that PSG laid for him, and Solskjaer's error was because he didn't take Fred out during the halftime break. Honestly, I don't understand how a manager who all his career was built upon being a super sub didn't think about taking Fred out during the halftime break. Even though Fred's last tackle was clean, but by the way he was playing, Fred was begging to be sent off, and he got the red card from referee Daniel Orsato. And now to make things a lot worse, Rashford unfortunately was exhibiting pain, so Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took him out and added Paul Pogba, and of course Fred was sent off. So it shifted into a pseudo 4-4-2 formation, but of course it didn't have the left mid because Fred was sent off. Now, this resulted in another great decision by Thomas Tuchel, because Thomas Tuchel, when he saw Rashford was out, he was like, perfect. I don't need to have a strong threat, or I don't need to think of this strong threat that's on my left side anymore. So he substituted around 5 minutes later Rafinha for Verratti. That is a fresh leg substitution. And he took out as well Florenzi, and Thomas Tuchel put in Thilo Kehrer, another fresh leg substitution. And basically the purpose of a fresh leg substitution is to add in a fresh core in order to basically contain the game and drive it home. In this case, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer shouldn't have put Paul Pogba in. I think he should have put in Van de Beek, but Paul Pogba played okay, so it didn't really matter. Well, speaking of which, though, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer took out Cavani for Donny Van de Beek in the 79th minute. A little late for that. And then he took out Anthony Martial and added in Mason Greenwood. Way too late for that. And now the frosting on the cake is he took out Aaron Wan-Bissaka and put in Orion Igalu in the 90th minute. What was that sub, man? You know, Igalo needs time to score goals. That was useless. So Solskjaer's errors were not starting Greenwood and Van de Beek, starting with a defensive mindset, and lastly, not removing Fred during the halftime break, which resulted in his sending off. Tuchel's errors, on the other hand, were starting with a 4-3-3 formation and not having someone like Ander Herrera in there who's used to some of these United players. But he corrected that error, and in the 65th minute, he introduced Ander Herrera, and he shifted that formation to a 3-5-2 formation by subbing in the correct players at the right time. So at least Thomas Tuchel, who did errors, corrected them during the game. Speaking of which, as for fresh legs, Tuchel also removed Diallo and added in Idrissa Gana Gaye, which is a fresh leg substitution. And as we expected, through a counter-attack, of course, it wasn't really through Idrissa Gana Gaye, but just the fresh legs in there through a counter-attack because United was trying to get the game level. Rafinha threw a good play, passed it to Neymar, which scored a third goal for PSG. And with that third goal, shortly after, our referee Daniel Orsato whistled the end of the misery for Manchester United. Let's quickly talk about the other guys in Group H. Turkish champions Istanbul Başakşehir and RB Leipzig, the German team who were, by the way, the Champions League semi-finalists last season, had an outstanding game where Leipzig took the spoils in the 92nd minute via a great strike by their attacker Alexander Sorloth. Not before, however, Istanbul had an incredible comeback, which unfortunately didn't last, along with their hat-trick hero, Irfan Can Kafeci. So if you haven't watched that match, after this video, pull up the highlights. You will not regret it, I assure you. Because of that game, Group H now is on fire. RB Leipzig, Manchester United, and PSG are all looking for a spot in the next round with 9 points each. So we are in for a treat next Tuesday, where Leipzig hosts United at the Red Bull Arena, PSG hosts Istanbul at the Parc des Princes, and each PSG, Leipzig, and United team need a win to comfortably go through the next round. So please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications because I'm going to be doing analysis videos on those matches. And I would love for you guys to join me on those analysis videos as well. Before I let you guys go, what do you guys think about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Do you guys think he is still fit for the United job? What do you guys think about Fred? Why did he keep Fred in for that long? Please comment your answers below. I would love to have a discussion with you guys. The main reason I made this football channel is to have a discourse with football fans around the world where we talk about the craziness of the game. And without any further ado, I would love to thank you guys all for tuning in to the OI Report. Please look out for my videos. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And till next time.